What's up, folks? Let me talk to you guys. We're gonna talk today about why Moss is one of the greatest anime villains in anime. A hero is only as great as their villain. Who said that? Lex Luthor from Smallville. This season marks the triumphant return of Bell Cranial, aka that little Nika. His adventures as he picks up girls in dungeons. But today, guys, it's not about Bell's non-stop harem, rather the ever-adapting, ever-evolving monsters that lurk in the deepest corners of that very dungeon. The 4th season of Danmachi introduced yet another very memorable villain. The best villain, Moss. Huge! Just give him a big hand clap. After the high bar, which was set by the Black Minotaur, this cunning, brilliantly sinister monster is a good follow-up in my opinion. Some might even say that Moss Huge is one of the greatest recent villains of anime. Now, I have to insert a little caveat when I describe him as one of the greatest villains. And he is going to get what's called the underrated stat boost. What is that, guys?
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Let's explain the underrated stat boost, right? Without the underrated stat boost, a character like Moss Huge can't compete with villains like Madara and Dio. It just is what it is, right? Madara is basically like a handicap. I ain't gonna lie. Madara and Dio, they're just popular characters, period, right?
They love me.
So the underrated stat boost is, if you just look at this villain in its micro ecosystem, forget everyone else that you know, you're like, nah, this is a good ass villain. So let's continue. Until now, all of the villains in Danmachi have mainly resorted to their monstrous strength, be it physical strength or numbers or the combination of the two. Be it the giant silverback in season 1, the war game against Apollo Familia in season 2, or the Black Minotaur in season 3. So naturally, when a giant green monster shows up, I expected the same, but fam, was I wrong? It basically thought like a human, letting adventurers do all the fighting and then ambushing them when they were at their weakest to steal and absorb the crystal. That's some gangster shit. This is how he gained his strength, through the crystals dropped by dead monsters. And through this slow yet effective method, it's like investing, like Warren Buffett shit. He kept growing in strength, so much so that he was able to match blow for blow against a level 4 adventurer like Bell. And not to mention that smirk, is that goddamn smirk which always looms on his face, instilling fear and despair on some anti-spiral Black Clover despair shit into the unfortunates that came across him. Moss Huge made its first appearance during the 3rd episode of season 4, as Bell and the gang were adventuring in the lower levels of the dungeon in search of, I don't know, some items. It was at the Great Falls where things took a sinister turn when Mr. Luvis, an acquaintance of Bell, showed up hurt, and following him was a giant green creature called the Great Moss, the Moss Huge. As Bell and the monsters engaged in physical confrontation, what felt off was that airy smirk on that green Moss Huge's face, almost as if it was enjoying all of this. It was having fun, it was taking pleasure, waxing these adventurers. Took everything the gang had to hold it at bay, and even then they fell prey to its scheme. When Chugasa got hit with a long-range attack and got infected, how the heck did you get hit when you had a shield hero in front of you? But that's another story. Now, for a minute, I want you to comprehend how well thought out Moss Huge's plan was. He infected Chugasa so that Bell and the others would have no choice but to come after him. And once they did, he led them to a monster horde, made them kill the entire swarm, and then took all the crystals. This man was delegating. He was making other people work for him. This is, in other words, gangsta shit. Dude was basically trolling the guys out of boredom. Moreover, during their first encounter, Moss Huge also gauged Bell's aptitude for battle. It knew that Bell could prove to be a threat. So what did he do? During the second encounter, he purposely separated him from the rest, sending him down into the Great Falls. Moss Huge said, bitch! Ah! Why? So he can keep taking on his adventurers. Anyways, so with their ace out of the picture, It now laid the framework for the final trap. This time, a horde was not enough. This time, Moss Huge trapped the gang in the middle of a pass parade. A pass parade! Do you guys know what a pass parade is? Well, I'll tell you. It means swarms of monsters charging from every side. Even with Harume's level boost, they still fell short against such a power. Kind of reminds me of Gears of War. Any of you guys ever played Gears of War? That shit was fun back in the day. Lucky for them, Bell made it back from the Great Falls, and a final battle resulted in Moss's huge inevitable despise. Now, even though Moss Huge got that inevitable demise, let's talk about what makes him a great villain. If I didn't already, after witnessing these thriller stack episodes, I believe that Moss Huge, even though vulnerable to the goddamn plot, was indeed a great villain. Why, you motherfuckers ask? Well, I judge villainous on 4 categories. Let's hear it. Cunningness, strength, morality, entertainment. Always remember the underlying underrated stat boost that is there, okay? But I won't keep talking about that underrated stat boost. So we're gonna start with cunning. This part is seriously a no-brainer, given how he masterfully manipulates his prey into doing all the dirty work for him. His plans are quite well thought out, which is something quite rare for monsters. He first leads a horde of monsters to its target, and once the monsters are subdued and the adventurers are exhausted, he ever so gently sweeps in to collect the spoils. Some might call him a coward for that, but a true tactician understands that in the game of survival, there are no freaking rules. One either kills or gets killed, and Moss Huge understands this. And in this situation, laying traps was a brilliant tactic for gaining crystals and not having to endanger himself. This man is a thug. This hit and run tactic, this is what kept him alive for so long. And besides, his tactic to not engage in head-on bouts with an adventurer is not a sign of physical incapability. Far from it. One can't be a worthy villain if he can't possess the physical capacity to back up his cunning. And this is exactly what Moss Huge had. His first battle against Bell, where he took Bell head on along with the assistance of his allies, is a worthy testament of his physical prowess. Not to mention his infectious moves would render his foes incapable of fighting. All of this combined with the sick club which he uses to fight, bashing up people, makes him a capable fighter. You know what? I gotta take a moment, and I apologize if I'm yelling during this. It's just that I really like Moss Huge, and I already know choosing him of all the characters in anime to talk about is like, it's even low, like for the algorithm kind of thing. I really fucks with Moss Huge. I really think he's good. So I'm putting my heart into this. Anyways, I'm gonna continue. Lastly, we all know low morality makes for a hateable villain, right? And for Moss, who has no morality whatsoever, the hate just keeps coming. Witnessing how he mercilessly uses fallen adventurers to lure in more prey. How, with that eerie smirk, he bashes in that elf's head just adds to the disgust. A scene in one of the episodes shows Moss near a cave along with countless lifeless adventurers stacked on one another, which he uses as bait. He's basically Dio. Whoa, that was sudden. How is he like Dio Brando, you might be asking? He's not. Hear me out. As I was watching the series, something kept feeling familiar, as if I had seen this tactic somewhere before, and then it hit me. Moss Huge is basically like Dio, but broke. The way he was trolling Bell and the gang with the damn crooked smirk, and how Dio goes about his own battles. And similar to Dio, Moss too is evil without any reason. He's just evil. He has no background plot which depicts how he came to be. Mostly because he's a monster. And that's how they usually are. He's evil for the sake of being evil. Nothing else. And this thought seems just like plain writing to some. It's a good thing given how it's different from the other major villains up until now. So to me, it seems like plain writing. Now, he's just evil for the sake of being evil. But nah, this is refreshing, especially in Danmachi, right? Compared to the other villains. Now, I'm not saying that Moss is on the same level as Dio. Not even close. But I just felt like mentioning these similarities to both these characters. Let's talk about meeting the Danmachi standard. Danmachi is not an underrated anime in any way. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's very underrated. But anyways, it feels like it deserves more recognition. Yes, it does, because it's underrated. I had a scriptwriter help put my thoughts together, guys, so I'm calling him out. This shit is underrated. Danmachi is fire. As a diehard Danmachi fan, a blind reaction fan, I would have been totally let down. The sequel wasn't up to par with his ancestors. Luckily, such wasn't the case. The animation, storytelling, the plot, the waifus all remained faithful to the prior season. Finale of the previous seasons, with the introduction of Black Minotaur, set a new standard for Danmachi battles, and Moss Hughes was worthy villain to follow up, though not on par with the Minotaur. Remember, Bell is trying to face this Minotaur later on. He has some beef. It was a great stepping stone for Bell to once again surpass his limits on some Yami shit, and ever so close to reaching his beloved Wallenstein. I would just say Ice. That last name is hard. But anyways, let's be real. Every villain that Bell has ever faced, be it the Apollo Familia, the Ishtar Familia, or any other, what they have been is the means for Bell to surpass his limits. And if not for Moss Hughes, Bell wouldn't have unlocked a new move, Argo Vesta. So I'd state that Moss Hughes definitely met the Danmachi standard, and guys, I like it. All in all, for a monster, Moss Hughes was a highly intelligent, powerful being who, unlike most monsters, was consciously laying out traps for its enemies. He possessed strength that complemented its cunning, making him truly a devastating foe to encounter. His defeat against Bell was inevitable, given how the world works. Goddamn plot armor, hero always wins. But the limited time that we got to spend with Moss Hughes, one of the GOATs, where he ruled Bell and he caused fear throughout his gang, that was a whole spectacle to see. I love that shit. Moss Hughes! Moose, 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 moose! Anyways, that's all for today's video. Hope you found some entertaining opinions, and if you did, please consider liking, subscribing, and switching on the notification bell so you don't miss out on these new updates. While you're at it, why don't you share this video? Share it! Press the share icon. You can also check out other videos on this channel, which you can find somewhere on the screen right now. With that said, I'll see you on the next one. Really appreciate you sticking around. God bless Moss Hughes. May he rest in peace. Hope you guys really consider sharing this video. A lot of liking and stuff. But hey, we need more attention on Moss Hughes and the Danmachi franchise in general. So until next time, guys. Later. YaBoyRocklee.